Welcome to Community Update. I'm Tom Handel.
And I'm Hannah Kramer. This week we'll attend a job creation workshop.
We'll also talk with a lifelong peace activist.
And we'll see how some students are keeping Casco Bay clean.
All that and more brought to you by CTN5, your local community television station, and WMPG Radio right now on Community Update.
The Portland Brewers 5K Holiday Dash is coming up on Sunday, December 11th at 11 a.m. The race is a charity event aimed at helping people stay active during the holiday season. Reraw Irish Pub has teamed up with several local brewers to sponsor the race, proceeds of which go to benefit Portland Trails and Toys for Tots. Runners will be treated to great views of the Eastern Prom, and after the race they'll cool down with a party at Reraw. Participation is limited to 325 runners, and entrants must be at least 21 years old. To register, go to register.gorun.org/Brewers Holiday Dash or call 775-2411 for more information.
The Maine Association of Nonprofits has joined with longtime partner Maine Biz to introduce a new publication due in November, which will provide nonprofits with a unique opportunity to showcase their work to a statewide audience of 10,000 subscribers. A two-page, full-color spread usually costs over $5,000, but they are now offering nonprofits a reduced rate of $1,995, and MAMP members receive an additional $300 off. This publication will have limited advertising opportunities, and the deadline for this initial edition is November 4th. For more information, email Jessica Lantos at jlantos@nonprofitmaine.org.
Governor LePage has said that job growth is the key to Maine's economic future. Southern Maine Community College recently held a job creation workshop designed to bring business leaders and government officials together to share ideas about reducing unemployment in the state. Governor LePage kicked off the event by talking about his goals for the session.
Since I've become governor, the one thing and the reason I ran for governor is for all too many years I hear a lot of talk about prosperity in Maine. But we never seem to address the big issues, the tough issues, the decisions that we all know need to be made, but aren't made. Our administration is about jobs, and better jobs. Jobs that we can rebuild a middle class. Jobs that we can build prosperity for the state as an economy and for you as business owners and leaders in the field of business. We made a down payment back in January, as we said we would, through our red tape audits. We wanted to see some rules and regulations that were hindering the movement of business. Well, I think we've made that down payment. Now it's time to get down to real work and find out what hinders us from creating jobs and what we can do in Augusta, as your governor and my administration and all our commissioners, what we can do to help you.
SMCC President Dr. Ronald Cantor explained the goals of the job workshop.
I think that what we're doing today with the governor and with the business leaders is creating exactly that type of environment. The discussion is open and business leaders are participating. They're telling us about what their constraints are, what their opportunities are, what they need our help with. I'm listening for them to tell us what areas they need skilled workers, and we are gearing our training programs to meet their needs.
Now, SMCC has a pretty good track record. 95% of its graduates stay in Maine, 93% secure jobs after graduation. What accounts for that success?
We are very proud of that record, and I think a large part of it is because we listen to business needs and we try to provide pragmatic programs that are going to get people high-wage, high-skilled jobs.
And a lot of ideas are going to be flowing back and forth here today. That's kind of exciting, isn't it?
It absolutely is. We are a college. I certainly love having ideas flow freely. We welcome not only our students and our faculty, but the community to participate as well.
And you said you're listening today. What are you listening for?
We're listening for those specifics. We want to hear the challenges from the business owners, the business leaders, whether they're in production industries, service industries, high-tech industries, low-tech, hospitality, whatever it might be. They're facing constraints. It's a bad economy. Hopefully we're pulling out of it soon, but they need workers. They have some issues with regulation they're telling us about, and a lot of other factors. We're trying to be creative, find out what we can do together to lessen the barriers and help train the people who are going to overcome those barriers, grow the economy, and create more jobs.
Michelle Puglionisi, branch manager of Manpower Employment Agency, talked about what she hopes to take away from the session.
I'm listening for ideas from employers on how they do intend to create jobs, obviously, but also how a service such as ours might be able to help them bridge the gap between a temporary opportunity and obviously a full-time job. I'm looking for ideas on how to, deal with unemployment in an issue where we have positions for people, and I'm really looking to hear from the Department of Labor in terms of what they intend to do about unemployment reform.
You get a lot of feedback from your temporary workers. What are they telling you? What are their frustrations?
Their frustrations are that they don't hear back from employers when they go seeking a job on their own, and also that the skills that they once had in the marketplace, if they may have been laid off from a position, aren't acceptable skills for what employers are looking for now. Either that employers have added to job responsibilities and the skills that they have don't meet the current job descriptions, or that many positions are being rolled into one position, so that there are additional responsibilities that they don't know how to do, and they're feeling the need for more training and more skill development.
Is there a lot of frustration out there among that community?
I don't know if it's called frustration. I think we see. I think at one point it was frustration. And now it's seeming to settle into something other than frustration, beyond frustration, almost a sense of giving up.
And what do you think can be done to help break the unemployment logjam, if anything?
There needs to be some stuff done at the state of Maine, at the Department of Labor. There needs to be some reform there in terms of how claims get handled, how decisions are made on who can collect unemployment and who can't. Because I'm here to tell you that there are opportunities for people to make money other than on the state of Maine unemployment.
This working session is designed for business leaders to share their ideas with the governor, state officials, and business leaders, so together they can find a solution to Maine's employment problems. At SMCC in South Portland, I'm Brian Knobloch.
USM Associate Professor of Computer Science Claire Bates Congdon is part of a team of scientists throughout northern New England researching how genetics and the environment work together to both trigger and prevent disease. Congdon's 5-year, $1.2 million project will focus on the development of formulas that will identify DNA that alters genetic mechanisms. This NIH-funded project will study diseases such as cystic fibrosis and investigate the effects of toxic metals such as arsenic on our genetic makeup.
The Meg Perry Center will present an exhibit entitled Darfur on Our Doorstep during this week's First Friday Art Walk. The drawings by Maine artist Kenny Cole grew out of Cole's discussions with the Sudanese refugee community here in Portland and include text from various sources that together form a colorful, puzzle-like array that tells a larger story. This exhibit was made possible by a grant from the Maine Arts Commission. For more information, call 772-0680.
Mary Jo McConaughey fell in love with the Mexican rainforest and the Mayans who lived there at an early age. Her new book, Maya Roads, chronicles her 30-year love affair with the region and its people. Brian Knobloch talked with her at a recent brown bag lunch at the Portland Public Library.
Mary Jo, your book, Maya Roads, is a story of your 30-year love affair with the Mayan people. Tell us a little bit about how you started on that journey.
As a very young woman, when I was studying Spanish in Mexico, I simply went to the museum in Mexico City, saw an exhibit on the Lacandon Maya Indians deep in the jungle of Chiapas, southern Mexico. And I, being young, said, well, I think I'll go there. And there were no roads, and you had to go in on a trail. But I just fell in love with the rainforest, the beauty, the temperature, just wonderful people. And so for years later, I decided I wanted to go back after covering the wars in El Salvador, covering the Middle East. So I started young, but when I went back with different eyes.
And to dispel the most common myth, the Mayan people really didn't die out 1,000 years ago.
The Maya, far from dying out when their big, beautiful rainforest cities were abandoned, continued to live on. They were killed in high numbers at the time of the conquest of the Europeans. But today, there are as many Maya as there were on the eve of the conquest. There are 8 million Maya in the world, speaking 29 languages, and 15% of them live in the United States.
And let's talk about their descendants for a while, the current Maya. What surprised you the most about them?
What surprised me about the Maya, I felt so totally comfortable with the Maya, knowing that they felt at one with the rainforest and that their spiritual point of view came from the rainforest, and that even after all of these years, they were connected in many ways to what we know of the classical period Maya, that is, those great civilizations which had the first writing in the hemisphere, that had developed astronomy and knew a lot about medicine and food and the environment so many years ago, hundreds of years ago, that so much of that lives today in the Maya.
And the Mayan people today they're not cut off, isolated in the middle of nowhere. I mean, they're aware of the world and the good and bad in it, yes?
The Maya today are struggling to get education and the kind of communication that others have very easily. Part of the reason they can't is because of poverty, just as it would affect poverty any place else in the world. But many are getting educated and moving on. Some are coming to the United States the way immigrants have always come. The Maya today who are isolated are living up in the mountains or in remote areas, but more and more they're connected. I've visited Maya in Florida, in Mexico, in California, who listen every day to the local news of their village on the internet. And vice versa. If you've got wireless, you can also be in communication with your family, and even though they're 2,000 miles away in Alabama. So yes, times have changed, and we'll never go back. We'll never go back probably to the isolation of any human group, let alone the Maya.
What was the biggest change between your first visit 30 years ago and today, either good or bad change?
I say that the biggest change is in a single word, roads. That is, where once I needed to go in on a narrow trail and be pretty serious about getting to where I was going, the lake, for instance, or a village. Today, roads run by. Why? Because timber people have built them in order to get the wood out. The rainforest is falling. But it's also more convenient for people that lived isolated. Roads are a double whammy. They can be good, but depending on who travels them, whether they're there to sack the rainforest or whether they're there to actually help people live a better life.
Painting for a Purpose will hold its second annual auction on Saturday, November 12th from 4 to 6:30 p.m. in the Rhines Auditorium at the Portland Public Library. The whimsical, hand-painted furniture was created by local artists, students from Portland schools, and USM, as well as community members. All money raised will go towards youth-led service learning grants written by Portland students who want to make a difference in their community. Entry fees are $10 for an individual and $25 for families. For more information, call 934-3616 or go to paintingforapurpose.net.
South Portland bus service routes will see some changes effective November 6th. The most significant adjustments will be in the afternoons on Route 21, the Willard Square and SMCC line. Due to traffic congestion and changes in ridership, additional running time will be added to 4 afternoon round trips. On Route 24A, the main mall line, minor timetable adjustments will be made to the first 2 trips in the morning and the last trip in the evening. Some minor changes have also been made on Route 24B. You can get an updated timetable by calling 767-5556 or by going to southportland.org.
Brian Willson is a Vietnam veteran turned peace activist who has fought injustices in the criminal justice, political, and military systems. Willson lost both legs below the knee in 1987 when he was intentionally run over by a military munitions train. He spoke with Tom about his long history of radical pacifism.
Just to start a little bit about you joined you were drafted and enlisted in the Air Force for the Vietnam War. How did you feel about American foreign policy at that time?
Oh, I believed that the United States was the savior of the world. We were going to protect the free world from the communists that were everywhere, threatening our freedom and democracies, and But I grew up in the McCarthy era, and my parents were very much into the McCarthy era, and they were very active in the church, and it was all kind of fit together.
Woven in together, yeah.
Yeah, so that was my orientation.
And what began to change your mind about that?
Well, at first I was at Headquarters Air Force in Washington, and I really didn't respect my superiors there very much. And I thought, wow, these are the people planning the war. And then I was ordered to go to Vietnam as an Air Force Ranger officer. And within a month or 2, I'd seen so much death and killing of Vietnamese villagers. It was just a no-brainer at that point. This is incredibly immoral, illegal, unconscionable. And I was in shock that all of my ideology about my country and the values of people in the United States were just completely contradicted by what we were doing.
And now you're trying to make people more and more aware of imperialism, American imperialism. So that sort of
Correct.
fits
I've been
into
doing that for about 40 years. Yeah, that's right. I mean, it never stops. So, Vietnam vets, like Iraq vets, suffer from multiple tours. Vietnam vets suffer from multiple wars. We have to live in a society that's at war with somebody all the time, or bombing somebody all the time. It's very difficult to maintain my center and my state of being without going completely crazy.
Now you're making this presentation on Longfellow Books based on the book that you wrote, Blood on the Tracks.
Correct.
Can you talk a little bit about the incident that happened, where that title comes from?
Well, in 1987, I was at the largest weapons depot on the West Coast, the largest Pentagon weapons depot where all the weapons were coming from that went to El Salvador and Nicaragua during the Reagan's wars against Central America in the 80s. And I had spent a lot of time in those countries and had documented a lot of the killings by U.S. weapons. And that was the base where they were coming from. So a bunch of us started blocking munitions trucks and trains at that base, and people were getting arrested regularly. And I waited 3 months. I was kind of slow coming to what I was going to do. I was a jail support person. And then I decided on a certain day, September 1st, 1987, I and 2 other veterans would fast for 40 days on water only between the rails, assuming we would be spending time in jail. But if we were released from jail, we would come back to those tracks. And it's 5-mile-an-hour train, so it wasn't a high-speed train, and it was high security for the train because it carried a lot of munitions. So there was there was never any threat of being run over, but we expected to be arrested and possibly do a year in prison. But something happened that was very bizarre. The train accelerated to 3 times the speed limit, ran over me, and the other 2 vets just barely got out of the way. I was sitting, and they were crouched, so they were on their feet, and I was on my rump. And I got run over and almost killed. I went completely under the train, so that was very unusual. And in my frame of reference, that this would not happen in this country. And but I learned that the train crew had been ordered not to stop that day. I was considered a terrorist, and they feared that I was going to hijack the train. That's what they said.
So your talk today, I mean, is not going to be seen, if it hasn't been seen by the people watching it right now. You're on tour. How can people get more information, how they might be able to hear you speak and talk about
Well, they can go to the website bloodonthetracks.info, which is about the book, some about my history, my life, and all the locations and venues where I have been speaking and will be speaking.
Great. Well, thank you very much. And certainly, if people want to hear more about your fascinating life, they can certainly go to Longfellow Books and purchase the book.
Correct.
Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.